We're going to call the meeting to order. Will you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the December 5 meeting of the Westport Select Board. We start tonight with acknowledgements of recognitions. I know I would like to just recognize the tree lighting that we had yesterday. So the Recreation Department and the Westport Land Conservation Trust hosted a tree lighting ceremony, and there was a very big contingent of police officers. We had the fire department there, we had explorers there. It was a really great program. There was a lot of kids out there. We had the Greater Tiverton Community Chorus, we had the Middle High Pep Band, so it was quite an event. So, and the weather was great. It wasn't the windy, nasty weather like the day before. So thank you to everybody who put together the tree lighting over there at Westport Woods. I'm not aware of anyone we should acknowledge a passing. Does anybody know of anybody? Well, good. We don't want to acknowledge passings of anybody. I have a request to bump up 3A and 3B because some of these police officers need to work tonight. So I'm going to ask Lieutenant Bell, were you here to talk about that?
I can just introduce them.
Yeah, we lost our mic. Just, you can come sit down.
Yeah.
Do you want to, so we have Cody Smith?
Yep, Cody Smith.
Cody, do you want to come?
Yes, sir. Cody's currently a reserve officer. He has completed all the necessary training and screening requirements. He's completed the full-time police academy and graduated.
You can sit.
And Cody's a Westport resident, holds a bachelor's degree of science from Westfield State College. He's also a graduate of the Randolph Full-Time Municipal Police Academy. So we would just hope you would appoint him a full-time police officer.
Great, thank you.
I'll move that.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Do you have anything you want to tell us about yourself? Or why you want to be a police officer here in Westport?
It's a beautiful community. I'm from a big city, so this is an interesting little change. I've come to find a lot of people I've met so far are extremely supportive of police, so it's a really nice community for me to kind of immerse myself in. And the people I've worked with have been phenomenal in teaching me how to be better every day, so it's been great so far.
Great, thank you. Anybody have anything? So we have a motion and a second to appoint Cody Smith to a full-time police officer. All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Welcome on your new step aboard. And then we have Sean Munzing. Can you come?
It's nice to see that they're clean shaven because it's
Well, didn't they have like a
that's the
November
no shave
thing?
November, and then we also do what's called the chief started it, double down December. And they either have to get donations or make a donation, and the union matches it, and it goes to the Jimmy Fund.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that.
So Sean is currently a reserve police officer. He holds a bachelor's degree from Franklin Pierce University in criminal justice. He's also been a full-time dispatcher for a couple of years now. He currently resides in Westport, and we'd like to appoint him our police trainee, so he can attend the academy. The academy starts in January.
I'll move that also.
Second.
So this is a motion to appoint Sean Munzing to full-time officer subject to successful completion of training, testing, and background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Beverly, Massachusetts, moved out here. When I first came to Westport, I knew being involved in law enforcement, once I saw Westport as a small town, small community, that's kind of where I wanted to be. I'd always want to be a name within the community rather than just a number, to be able to make a difference in a small community versus being out in a big city.
Yes, well, thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Lieutenant, is there anything while we're here you want to mention? You mentioned it already? Okay.
No, I don't, but speaking of the Christmas tree lighting, one of our dispatchers who was there said it looked like a Hallmark Channel TV show.
It was great. I love the video on your Facebook page with the officers meeting Santa Claus. I think that was great. So go check them out on
Now the town
Facebook.
hall's blank because we don't have it here.
Yeah, we don't have any. You gotta go to Westport.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to invite the assessors forward. So we have a tax classification hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56. Discussion with the assessors for the percentage of local tax levy to be borne by each class of property for fiscal year 2023. I think we had, I don't know, I thought I had, we have a printed copy.
Yep.
I don't know if I have one I can show to the public, but. Welcome, Steve.
Okay, Steve Maderas, Chairman of the Board of Assessors. Board votes unanimously to suggest that we stay with a single tax rate. The state does allow us to shift up to 1.75 burden on the industrial and the commercial personal property base. But if you look at your handout, really nothing's changed from the past year. As far as percentages, we're still 92% residential and actually went down a little bit in commercial and industrial property, and up a little bit in personal property. It would just put too much of a burden on the small tax businesses in the town. The bulk of our tax base is coming from residential, 92%. If you look down at the second column, fiscal year 22 versus 23, you'll look that our values have gone up on residential property about 10.5%, 10.6 actually. Our total levy has gone up over $2 million, from 34,363 to 36,523. And that basically, that was some because of the higher values, and new growth went up quite a bit, went from 691,000 to 847,000, so about a 22% increase in new growth.
So Jim was pointing out that that was because of really great work in the assessor's office that he wanted to highlight. So do you want to tell us where that came from?
We've hired Theo, and we've been more than happy with him. He's done a fantastic job filling the shoes of Sharon, who had been here for forever and did a great job. And we thought we'd really be at a huge deficit, but Theo's really stepped up to the plate. We're very, very happy with it.
I reviewed the preliminary budget with Jim the other day, and it's nice to have a pleasant surprise with the tax growth, with the new growth. That was a nice.
Yeah, new growth is up quite a bit. If you look at the other numbers, like I say, residential was up 10.5, commercial industrial went up 5.5. You see a big jump in the personal property, and a lot of that is because of the solar farm down the street. All those solar panels are considered personal property, so we had a huge increase, almost 20% in the personal property. But when you add them all up, it's only about 8% between commercial, industrial, and personal. So we recommend we stay with a single tax rate. Now, it's not totally in stone, but our estimated tax rate for next year was actually down quite a bit from the year before. Because the value went up, the rate went down. The average value of a home went up about 10%, which our median, our average home in this town now is up to $544,000, where it was about $495,000. And if you look at the median, there's not that much of a difference. It was about $403,000, and the median value now is about $450,000. Of course, the average is if you take all the houses together and divide them by the number, that's the average. The median is when you line them up, from top to bottom, you go around the middle. So.
I just want to pause a second on that. So, a lot of people think that when their home value it gets assessed higher, that their tax rate just goes out the roof.
Well, the tax rate actually went down.
But the tax rate actually went down.
Right. Went from 848 to 816.
Right. So the tax rate went down. The tax burden on that same property went up $243.
Roughly on the average, yeah. Yeah, it went up about 5.8%. Because the value went up so high, the rate came down. So there was a tax increase, but it's about 5.8%, where the value actually went up 10%.
But the
I mean, I
increase-
don't think anybody, it's not a secret that, Property values have gone a little crazy in the last
Yeah,
few years.
I think you're right. I think it's just that a lot of people think that, oh, well, now it's $544 and I'm paying the same tax rate. You're not. You're paying about $250 more next year than you will the year
And again,
before.
most of that's because of the school.
Well, that's part of Proposition 2.5, which people don't understand. If the value goes up so much, we have to decrease our tax levy in order that we don't grow more than 2.5%.
Right,
this year.
exactly.
So it never no matter what the rate is or what the value is, it never goes up more than that ever. That's what
That's
two
what
and a half
2.5's all about, right?
is all about, so.
And then I just want to highlight it again, you did say this, but I want to highlight it again because a lot of people complain about it. The reason that you're recommending that we keep the same tax rate is there's really only 5% of revenue is coming from
The commercial
commercial
industrial
properties, right? So it's not, there's not enough
Not
commercial
enough really
base.
to make a huge difference. You know, if we had, just for an example, Dartmouth stayed a single rate up until all that medical profession came in off of Florence Corner. Even when they had them all and up and down Route 6, a lot of businesses, they were still a single rate only up until maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I believe. You know, when all that medical, or might have been a few more years than that. But most of the area towns in our size range stay with a single rate. It would just be too much of a burden on the small communities.
So then what is it that you're asking for? What do we need to do for you today?
You need to decide if you want to accept keeping the taxes at a single rate. In other words, the commercial, the industrial, and the residential all get charged on the same rate.
Questions or comments?
No, I'll move that.
A question unrelated to the single tax rate, but the 5.8% average tax bill,
Mhm.
a lot of people would say, what about the 2.5%? So it's the difference, the excluded debt for the schools, fire station, police station?
That's all in that figure already. All the debt exclusion is all in the max levy already.
But doesn't it contribute something to what otherwise would be 2.5 in the average tax bill?
No,
Why not?
2.5%.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you go to the mics if you? This is Sue Brayton, she's the treasurer collector.
2.5% is 2.5% of the total levy that the town increases each year. It does not have any impact. The 2.5% does not apply to an individual tax bill. We're asked that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the entire
It's
Yeah.
It's the
It's the
total
entire
levy.
levy that goes up
$36
to
million,
1.5%.
$523,400.
And again, we've
This
had
year.
that same question, you know, my taxes went up more than 2.5%. You know, some taxes might not even go up that much. It all depends on the neighborhoods and what the sales were in that neighborhoods. You know, if you looked at some of the, it was in, what, over 10% of our 2021 sales were over $1 million. Over 10%. So, you know, the higher end properties probably get affected a little more, but that market tends to stay a little more inflation proof, because what happens is, when people buy property over $1 million, especially when they start getting into the $2 and $3 million range, they're not financing it. So it's not like you know, the average homeowner says, well, we can afford $1,800 a month or $2,200 a month. When these people are buying these high-end properties, a lot of times their banks aren't even involved, you know?
I think.
So that's why these realtors tend to shoot for the moon and get it, because they're dealing with a clientele that it doesn't make that much difference whether they're paying
Well, we
2.8 or
also have a very
3.5.
favorable tax rate in the state. I mean, again, of 351 municipalities, we're like 22nd.
22nd, I think
22nd,
25th, somewhere
23rd, somewhere in
there.
that range, so, yeah, we're very, very low. But that's common with communities that have very high
High-end value.
value.
Right.
You know, Little Compton is a perfect example. They have the lowest tax rate in Rhode Island, they have the highest property value, so.
We got a
that's-
lot of shoreline, and the same thing with Westport. We've got the two rivers, we got the ocean, we got, you know, even the property on the ponds and the lakes has gone up tremendously since I've been on the board for the last 28 years, and you've seen it, you live on the
Yeah,
ponds.
I've-
Used to be a lot of little
Tim just
condos
went
there,
for
and now
ridiculous-
there's a lot of
yeah.
beautiful homes on there.
Two of them just went for ridiculous. 3 times what I paid for mine.
Dick, did you have a follow-up question? Were you
No,
good?
So we're looking for a vote on the tax factor of one?
To a fact factor of 1, yes.
I'll move that.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the assessor's recommendation of a tax, what did you call it?
Factor of 1.
Tax factor of 1. So it's to set the commercial and the residential at the same rate. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wants to have a comment?
I just wanted to point out one other thing if no one does.
Go ahead.
You have it on here, 5.3%, but for people for that number, of that $36.5 million of that levy, only 1.9 and change is actually the commercial tax that we collect. So it's increasing that, again, just solidifying Steve's point.
Right.
Increasing that's not gonna significantly increase our,
And the total-
but it's
the
gonna
total-
put the burden on commercial property owners.
Total value of our town now is like 4.2 billion. Came up,
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I didn't see any discussion. All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Is there anything else going on with the assessor that you want to, like I said, great job to Theo and the office for finding the new growth numbers there. Anything else, Jim?
No, I'm aware.
we've got that new software package, Neomat, and we're extremely happy with
Happy
it.
with it?
Yeah, we
Good.
can, it can cut down a lot of the road work that we physically used to have to do, where you can bring your house right up, we can sketch the house right online, and for $7,500, it was a great piece of technology for us.
Good.
In fact, I work part-time for the town of Berkeley, and recommended it to them, they tried it, and they're getting it next year too, so.
Nice.
You gotta stay up with the technology,
We're all
you
using
gotta-
it. Conservation building, Board of Health, I'm using it.
nice tool.
Excellent.
It's a great tool.
You find tools that work. They're
That's
worth
it.
all the money in the world.
Thank you.
That's where a lot of that work came from as well.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there someone, is the applicant here? Yes, all right. So to the applicant, I'm gonna say your name wrong. Jumana Shadid, you can come forward. So we have a request from Jumana Shadid, doing business as Top Quality Auto Sales, Inc. for a Class 2 license and repair license at 937 to 939 State Road with Nicholas Obey, sorry, as manager with a total of 40 cars. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you just introduce yourself?
My name is Jumana Shadid.
Jumana Shadid,
I'm the
and
owner of Top Quality Auto Sales.
I'm her manager, so I manage the business. Well, actually, we are existing in Westport. We have the 935 State Road right next to it.
okay.
So we're just expanding operations,
so.
actually.
All right, wow. Steve always wants to look at the maps really closely, so. So I understand the paperwork is in order and we have recommendations from the appropriate bodies.
The police report is in and it's favorable, the building inspector has looked at it and he's in favor as well.
Anybody have any questions?
No, I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second to approve these. This is what you're saying, you're expanding next door. That's great. Is there any further discussion? Anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's
Thank you so much.
unanimous.
Good luck.
Welcome,
Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you.
I can't believe you didn't quiz them on parking spots or something. No. So we already took care of 3A and 3B earlier in the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Huh?
I was like, why
Right now.
Which one, G?
5G.
5G. Let's skip ahead to, you're Michael Burris. Oh, hello, come forward. Hey. We're taking out of order because he's here in person. And it's not 6:30 yet. Hi, so we have a request from Michael Burris, the town planner, to accept a $30,000 grant for a purchase of a conservation restriction at Snell Brook through FY23 Buzzards Bay Watershed Municipal Mini Grant Program. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us what this request is all about?
Yeah, so this is it's a grant through the Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program. It's to pay for a conservation restriction for 25 acres at 559 Main Road, permanently restricting development in that area. Buzzards Bay Coalition will be providing all of the required matching funds for this, and they will also be coordinating purchase of the restriction as well.
Awesome, thank you. And Jim, are you recommending this?
Yeah, this is for the Petty property. They had actually mentioned it when they came in just a few months back.
Yep.
This will help fund the CR restriction. There's no match from the town, so no cost to the town at this point.
Okay.
I'll move we approve.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Is there anything else while you're here?
We have a couple of other grants that will probably be coming through in the next We have one that I just submitted. It's for a hazard mitigation plan for the town. That's a 24K grant. Does require 5% match, but we had that conversation at that time.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Well, welcome.
Thank
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
See you again. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night.
We only have one person left, but she's here for the audit report, I'm assuming. All right, so, and Rosalie's not here yet. So we have a request to accept the retirement of Bernadette Oliver, the town clerk, effective January 6, 2023. So this is an elected position that she is vacating early, and I'll bump up the other item related to this.
I will move that regrettably.
Second, same.
Yeah. Is there any discussion?
Just, maybe Jim can advise us as to how how do we run the railroad in the meantime? Do we have somebody who assists there or take over the functions in the interim? And I assume with the election coming up in April, then there'd be somebody on the ballot, I would hope.
Well, we have 5I. The action for 5I is to request to post for an interim town clerk position to fill the unexpired term. Now, you'll recall that we do not have an assistant town clerk because the assistant town clerk was recently moved to another department. So we have quite a gaping hole there. We do not have an assistant to come take an interim.
That was part of my question.
Yeah. So I know we have an item in a minute to talk about posting to fill we would post and appoint someone effective through the election.
Mhm.
And then the election, I guess, would take care of the posting. But yeah, now to the practicalities, do we have thoughts about how we're going to cover that?
We're working on it. It's coming along, moving along pretty quick. Thrilled for Bernadette that she's going to retire. She's done a great job here. But it does leave a big hole down there, and we're trying to fill it. Paula has offered to step in part-time, kind of help out down there. I'm meeting with the union tomorrow to discuss a couple of other options for employees who are at least going over there part-time. Stella, who was the assistant, is still in the building, and she's willing to help out as well. We'll get through it because we have to, but it'll work. It's not going to be easy.
How about the old registrar? Is he full-time now?
The registrar is full-time, and that's one of the positions we're kind of hoping can assist as well. So if we can get 2 or 3 people in there that are willing to work part-time and help out, I think we can get through the next few months.
Well,
Beach
see if they're
passes is going to
interested.
be a cumbersome project, but we'll try to get through that as well. We spoke to Dana and Paula today. We both went down and looked over the beach pass process, and we're trying to see if there's any ways we can streamline it. Dana's going to look at some of the online programs to see if something's available. Realistically, it's probably not something we're going to be able to adjust for this year, but we need to do something with that. I hope to do it for this year, and kind of got put on the back burner, but I think the beach committee and the town really wants to streamline that
I
process.
get more complaints about that process than any other issue in town.
Well, and even if we find like the perfect interim and we hire the perfect assistant, they're still going to be brand new to the department, right?
Not necessarily.
Well, they'll be.
There's people within the system that might have interest.
Okay, well, go beg, borrow, steal, whoever we can find.
You gotta post first before we can find out.
So let's first, it's not a union,
No,
yeah, the
it's
town
not.
clerk is, no, but it's an interim, right? It's interim until April.
Yeah.
And then April, we would have to have a Westport resident running in April because it is still an elected position. I had I did ask Jim briefly to look if this is the moment we should change it to appointed, because that's the only remaining full-time employee that we have that's still elected. But I think there's some complications with the town clerk because the town clerk is responsible for the voting. And so I don't know that we really explored the options
So
there.
My understanding was a 2-part process. It was a town meeting as well as an election to make treasurer collector an appointed position. So whereas we will be electing a town clerk before the town meeting, they'll be here for 3 years anyway.
Yeah.
So
And we
it's
can-
something I think we need to look at in the future, but it's not going to help us out in the next few months.
All right, so let's go ahead so we have a motion and a second to request to accept the retirement and we'll with regrets. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous. And then let's go down to I. So we have a request to post for the interim town clerk position, effective January 7, I guess.
I'll move that.
And you said that's not a union, that, well, definitely, right, that's not a union position, so we don't have to go through union. Okay. All right, is there any discussion on that posting? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's
And I'm
unanimous.
hoping to get some candidates in within the next week and a half. It'd be great if we could make the appointment at the next meeting. Probably wishful thinking, but that's.
If you're ready to go, I'm sure we will be.
We really could use somebody quickly. I do want to point out that there was one more action item, B, that was related to the town clerk, but we discovered we do not need 5B. So I just, because I like to keep you on your toes with the agenda, so 5B is not
That
going to
would
be
be the first time
necessary.
I think we had to serve that. All right.
Yeah. Okay, do we have Mr. Roselli yet? Not yet. Let's just act on, so we're expecting Tony Roselli at 6:30. So let's just go ahead and take the action items that we can here until he comes. So action 5A is a notice of proposed acquisition on property APR on parcels located on Gifford Road and Mouse Mill Road owned by Michael P. Ferry. So this is just, we're just supposed to read the notice, we don't have to vote on anything?
Read the notice and if we could vote on the 120-day.
So they've asked us to consent to a reduction of the 120-day notice that's usually required with this.
This is me, I'm reading this.
Okay. Does anybody, can you just explain what the 120 days is we're waiving here?
Yes, I'd have to look at it. There's on the chapter lands and also on the APR lands, there's 120 days where they have the right, I guess, of first refusal. We've been waiving that so they can have done the APR quicker.
So this gets them to APR quicker. If we waive the 120 days, they get into APR quicker. Okay. Anybody want to move that?
I will move that.
So you don't have to read it into the regs?
So I have to read it or not?
What do I have to
We have
read?
to read that.
We have to read the whole thing. All right, so our, Ms. Boxler, please read.
Okay. In compliance with General Law, Chapter 7C, Section 37, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting by and through its Department of Agricultural Resources, called the Department, hereby gives notice that it proposes to acquire an agricultural preservation restriction, or APR, on the real property identified herein for the purpose of protecting in perpetuity its superior and productive agricultural resources by preventing their conversion to other uses. The application received by MDAR indicates that the property is owned by Michael P. Ferry, Inc. and consists of parcels located at Gifford Road and Mouse Mill Road in Westport, as approximately represented on the attached map. The APR may encompass all or parts of the area shown. The current use of the property is primarily for silage, corn, and triticale, T-R-I-T-I-C-A-L-E, how to pronounce that word?
That's, you got me. That's
Triticale, spelled T-R-I-T-I-C-A-L-E. Following the recording of the APR, the use of this subject property is limited to agricultural use as more particularly set forth in the APR document, the general laws, Chapter 184, Section 31, and the regulations of the Department, 330 CMR 22, Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, by Christine Chisholm, APR Regional Planner.
So there we read it in the record.
It's a property owned by Michael Ferry. It's on the south side of Mouse Mill Road and the west side of Gifford Road.
Did you find it?
We just looked up what should it call, how did,
It's
it
hay.
looks like wheat or something.
It's like a
It was
wheat
hay.
or hay.
Am I supposed to read this one too?
No, no.
Okay, so that was reading in the record, and then did we already have a motion in a second for approving the 120-day waiver?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So there we go. Anything else on that one? Jim? All right, let's move on. So 5B, there's no need for 5B.
So do we have to vote on a motion to release the 120 days?
We just did.
You made it, I seconded it.
You made the motion.
Just before she read it.
Okay, but did we vote?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay.
Just,
I didn't-
didn't we?
Yeah,
did.
you just did it.
We just
Okay.
did.
Sorry. I did not
Um,
See what happens when you go fast?
I know.
You get confused.
You just- I was
I assumed
looking
you were in
down.
favor
I was
of
looking
it
stuff up, I'm
since you
sorry.
moved it. I assumed you were in favor and didn't prod you too much. All right, so we're on 5C now. So 5B, we're passing over. 5C is a request to approve the contract for Roger Fernandez as the Route 6 Infrastructure Project Manager. You'll recall we authorized Jim to negotiate this at a previous meeting. So now we have, Jim, do you want to, I'm assuming you're recommending you approve it.
This is not talking about around a bit here.
6C.
You're trying to figure out where Roselli is.
5C.
5C, the Roger Fernandez
Right here.
Infrastructure Project
The
Manager.
contract, yes.
Yeah.
Roger Fernandez for the infrastructure coordinator for the Route 6. Discussed it at the last meeting, interviewed a few people and recommended him. He was at the last meeting, introduced himself to the board. And we just worked on the details of the contract. I recommend approval.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just so folks know, this is coming out of the, is it the ARPA money? It's not
Yes.
taxation, it's out of a separate fund for the
Separate
Route 6 infrastructure.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have D and E, probably don't require a lot of town administrator action if you're trying to figure out Roselli. So D, we have a request from Carol Freitas, the Veterans Officer, to accept the following donations. Norman Blanchett, $100, discretionary use. Valerie Butler, $100, Veterans Food Pantry. Westport United Congregational Church, MMI, $500, discretionary use, and $200 in gift cards from Mr. and Mrs. Sampson and the Angel Shop.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from the Council on Aging to accept the following donations. $50, Ralph Urban donation for best use, $50, Maureen Solomon for outreach, $10, Kathy Davis for outreach, $15, Richard Barboza, best use, $50, Ann Newton in memory of Muriel Peters, $25, Manuel Rigo for best use, $5,000, Neil Van Sloan for best use totaling $5,200.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Okay, hold on. Do you want to make a note that was Brian moved it, I seconded it, we're in favor, just flushes out? We get confused again?
Well, but I think they did it in the
I
wrong
think
order.
we've been doing this just so it makes it easier on Paula.
So just,
It really is.
so Paula, our secretary has, the meeting secretary has stepped away from her desk for the moment, so. I don't want to get anything that she would have to do too much.
How about the Christmas party?
No, she wanted me, I want to hear, she told me something to talk about for that one, so I want to.
Really?
Yeah. How about the request to approve the settlement agreement for Diane Crampton v. Town of West, well, no, maybe that one might have a conversation. All right, so we're just pausing. How about the town administrator report? You want to? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our 6:30 person. If he's not coming, then we're going to go to the Board of Health discussion, but I don't want to start the Board of Health discussion without Paula being here. That's why we're trying to jump around.
Okay.
Drive Jim crazy.
So the Buzzards Bay Watershed Municipal Mini Grant, that was Michael Burris, the town planner, just went through that a few minutes ago. The Hicks Bridge dredging study, the U.S. Army Corps completed their internal review of the study. They had a number of comments relating to the placement of the stone debris in the scour holes. So originally they were going to take the debris from underneath Hicks Bridge. They were going to dispose of it in a couple of deeper holes on either side of the bridge. But there may be some shellfish in those areas, so their internal review is looking for more information. The comments were sent to the town. We're reviewing those now, and the Watershed Alliance is also reviewing those. It may require additional funding going forward if we want to continue with this study. So we're trying to set up a meeting with them in the next week or two with the Army Corps to review the comments and just to get an idea of as to how we should proceed. We'll come back to the board once we get that information. The cemetery bathroom facilities, Diamond students have been doing a great job over there. They just put in the window. They're actually doing some siding on part of the building, the east side that's been ripped tar paper from as long as I can remember, so they're shingling that side of the building. They've done some small engine repair, they've worked with the cemetery crew on some of the foundations out in the cemetery, so they've been great to work with. We're gonna be going before the Board of Health for a septic system in the next month or two. So it's been a nice project. The cost is significantly less than what we were originally looking at to put this bathroom in. We are required to put a facility in, the state is requiring us to do that. And the last thing was the ARPA funds. School passenger vans, again, this went to level 1 approval. I got a notice today. They're gonna pass it on to level 2. They just requested some more information. The 2 SUVs were approved at the end of last week for the fire department, so that's with Bristol County as well, so it is moving along. Each one of these, though, is a separate application, so it's a separate application, separate funding source, separate tracking, so. Each time we approve ARPA funding from Bristol County, it's getting to be a little time consuming.
Yeah.
It's a great source of funds, and we still have some funding available. That's all I have. The only other thing I do want to mention is we sent out water bills. We replaced the water meters early in the summer. We had to wait till we got the software up and running before we could actually send out bills. So the bills went out instead of a 3-month time period, it's about a 6-month time period, so the bills should be roughly double. We did have issue with one of the meters, so if the public out there that's getting these bills, if they have an issue, to call the office and review it, but most of them look very good. The process was very easy. Instead of a day and a half of reading meters, it took us about 45 minutes to drive by and get all the meters read. It also tracks all the information over the months and the time period that the user's there, so if there's a leak, you can actually go back and identify what date that leak started. So it's a good system, but we do have a couple of bugs, and we're working our way through it. So.
I thank you. So we approved the 2 donations. I don't remember when you stepped out. So we approved the 2 donations, and then we had the town administrator report out of order here. So we had on our agenda 6:30 for the yearly audit. Do we have an update on that? All right, so we haven't heard from Mr. Roselli. So let's skip forward to Bill Weinberg.
Can you put us on his calendar? Have you heard from him lately or no?
I emailed him again today.
You
Just
might
sent a
have
reminder about this morning.
And it says Title IV regulations, but I'm told that was a typo,
Title
and it
V.
should be Title V regulations.
Title V, numerical Title V. I do the same thing.
So welcome.
Thank you. So on behalf of the Board of Health, I asked Jim if I could take a little bit of your time to do an update on DEP's regulatory initiative, which they kind of launched over the summer on TMDL compliance, because comments on their 2 sets of regulations are due December 16th, and also because the impact of these 2 regulations could be really significant both for individual septic system owners, which a lot of people are, most people are, and also for town government. And just to step back in context, so I think you all know that the Westport River is not in compliance with state water quality standards, and those standards are expressed as total maximum, total maximum daily load, TMDL. And for many, many years, DEP was kind of the gorilla in the closet about what would be done by way of enforcement or compliance. And so the gorilla is out of the closet in a really big way, and they've come out with these 2 sets of regulations. And one is a revision of the Title V nitrogen loading limitations, which I've explained a little bit. And the other is a brand-new permit, a watershed permit. And they're doing this for all of Cape Cod and for the South Coast communities, kind of starting with Westport, moving all the way to the Cape and all the way north to like Plymouth. So there's 11 different South Coast communities and all of the Cape. And DEP has been mostly focused on the Cape, but now they have expanded. So, yeah.
Nothing on the North Shore of Boston?
Nothing yet on the North Shore, no, because it all deals with estuaries, and I don't really know what the estuary situation is on the North Shore.
It's quite extensive.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't
Just
know,
like here.
but now
It's
they've,
no different.
because they've really,
Merrimack River.
they've really bitten off a huge amount. And I was gonna say later on, they've kind of said that their focus for the next few years is going to be on Cape Cod, so they might not actually be coming back to focus on Westport for a while, but because of the way the regulations are set up, there'll still be consequences in the interim and consequences that I think we want to focus on in our comments. So let me just focus on the Title V provisions. So these are provisions that apply directly to individual septic system owners, and it requires all system owners within the watershed, because it's a watershed related, so all systems in the watershed, but still that's several thousands of residents and businesses, must upgrade their system with a new terminology, best available nitrogen reducing technology. So even if you have a fully compliant Title V system, you have to retrofit it with a nitrogen reducing system. And all of that has to be accomplished within 5 years from what's called that DEP is going to designate each estuary as a natural resource area. So there's a public process that goes along with this. So this 5 years is not going to run from the date that the regulation takes place. It's going to start running from the date that DEP would come back to the town and say, okay, now we're going to do a public process that's going to designate the Westport River as a natural resource area. And because we have a TMDL, and the regulation makes that clear, we would be so designated. But you are talking about maybe 5,000 or 6,000 septic systems retrofitted, $13,000 to $40,000, depending on what the site is and what the condition of the septic system is now, total replacement, et cetera. So you're talking about tens of millions of dollars to be expended over 5 years. It's pretty outrageous. And that requirement for this best technology, if we have time, I can kind of explain a little bit what that means, also is going to apply to all new construction as well. So the watershed permit option, as distinct from applying to owners, is a municipality-wide permit. And it is essentially the integrated plan that that we went through. We had this integrated plan that had a series of options of what could be done to reduce nitrogen loading. It's kind of that plan, but on steroids. So we have to, if we went that route, we would have to commit to a series of very specific activities that would model out to meeting the TMDL within 20 years. But there would be 5-year increments of deliverables that the town would be responsible for, and then at the end of that plus annual monitoring, at the end of each of those 5 years, you'd come back and say, where are you? Well, you have to adapt and do this. But this would be a town-wide, it'd be a municipal government commitment that have to be adopted by the town. The reason that DEP came out with these two options is because they actually prefer the watershed permit, and it's what they've been doing on the Cape. But they don't have the authority to compel towns to buy into the watershed permit. But they do have authority over Title V. And so what they've done, in my opinion, is that they have made the Title V provisions sufficiently onerous that the town would be more or less compelled to pick here's our 20-year option, here's our 5 years, everyone's got an upgrade option, now which one do you want to pick kind of choice. But I still think, and I think our comments are going to focus on the Title V piece of it for now, in Part A, because I think the watershed permit is pretty much locked in, because they've already written these permits for a couple of towns on the Cape. And so that's pretty much cast in stone, but the watershed permit is open, and there are some specific provisions in there which I think would work against the initiatives that the Board of Health have set up, and also just the normal process of how systems gets upgraded. And that relates to this requirement for the best available control technology. And what that means is that it is a way, and DEP has used this before, to stimulate technology development. And so they will designate what the best available technology is. And in this case, it would be based on how well the technology reduces nitrogen. So right now, generally, all the systems reduce nitrogen to 19 parts per million. So if a technology came along and was able to demonstrate 10, then everybody would have to use that technology. And so forth and so on. And every time the technology advances, that better technology becomes the technology that everybody has to use. So it's a great incentive if you're a vendor to innovate to that technology, because everyone has to buy from you.
So even if you've already upgraded to the 19, you would have to upgrade again? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
so this gets
Or
into...
that's unclear.
So
Okay.
this gets into a little bit of the nuance, and the reason why I think we need to object to some of the restrictions that they have put on that. So, and excuse me if this is a little bit complicated, but, so they've set up two things. One, they said that for people who currently have nitrogen-reducing systems, they will only be exempt from this retrofit requirement if they put their system in 1 year before these regulations come into effect, 1 year prior. So that means anybody, and I think there are hundreds of people who have, in Westport, who have put in nitrogen-reducing systems before 2021, they would not be exempt. And so they would have to, whenever this designation came out, they would have they'd have to retrofit again. Once they did that, this next time, they wouldn't have to keep doing it. But then, because this period could extend out for 2 or 3 years or more before DEP comes back to us, well, we're going to continue to require, under our regulations, to require new construction to have DNITE systems. And also there are people who voluntarily or for other reasons put DNITE systems in. So there's going to be 2 or 3 years going forward from this that won't be covered by this other rule. So it is...
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's a focus of some of the comments that we want to make. And I guess just the last thing is that the program, the DEP program that they borrowed this from, this best available technology, is from the air quality program. Same thing for pollution control for big air sources. But that program has a threshold cost per ton, so that, because there's going to be some applications where this is great technology, but it's exorbitant. It's exorbitantly costly, and you can make the case that it's, I just have a little amount of emissions and I have to spend a huge amount for this technology. There's none of that in here. And so I think they've just really piled on the burdens in a way that I don't think are necessary. I don't think they really go to achieving nitrogen reduction. And there's other ways, and just it kind of creates obstacles, because if you have a system now, you'd be thinking, why would I want to upgrade now? I'm only going to have to retrofit, so I'm going to not upgrade now,
So, thank you very much. I think that's a very good overview. I know that you and some others in town, the Board of Health, and I know you've got some people on the Planning Board. I know you've got a lot of really smart minds looking at that. I've seen a lot of the comments that have been compiled to kind of go back to the state. But I think just kind of what I wanted to pull out, so tell me if I'm wrong here. So the proposal that we're commenting on is one, would require every person in Westport who has a septic system would have to upgrade within 5 years.
If they're in the watershed.
If you're in the watershed, okay. So
Right.
if they're- and is that's most of Westport, isn't it? Or do we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's-
I mean,
it's-
yeah, we're actually kind of going through all our files to actually understand the status of every system
Right,
in the town and understand where they are.
But certainly a large number of
Yeah,
Westport.
well, we know there's about 6,000 to 7,000 properties, all except a very small handful are reliant on septic systems. How many are in or out of the watershed, I'm not sure.
So
But let's
then-
say there's 5,000 or so.
So then, it sounds like the mechanism to kind of protect the homeowners here from having to have this really, because what did you say, between $12,000 and $40,000
Yeah,
expense,
that's
right?
just my seat of the pants.
Yeah,
right?
so.
Oh, no, that's accurate.
That's accurate.
So
That's accurate.
it is until you have 6,000 people all want septic at the same time.
Oh,
and-
yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. To
So-
install them, to monitor them,
So that would
you
be
know.
like each homeowner would have to pay for that, right? So then and you guys have a lot of comments related to that, like
Yeah.
you're talking about, like you're disincentivizing people from upgrading now, and like there's some other stuff going on. And then who's enforcing that? There's a
Right,
whole other,
yeah,
Deals.
yeah.
yeah.
And then there's this other path where the municipality can kind of take on the burden and say, okay, we're not going to burden our individual homeowners with this. The municipality is going to take action. So I'm assuming none of this is free, these things that they want the municipalities to
Well,
do.
right, I mean, well, of course, you're going to need to hire consultants to do a report that is going to provide, that meets the criteria for an application. Similarly to the way that, which goes back and looks at the models and looks at all the sources and kind of updates what we have there, and then would demonstrate, okay, we're going to do these certain things. Some of them are going to affect septic systems owners, maybe it'll be the use of fertilizers, maybe there'll be, there's a whole range of ideas out there that people have talked about. And then, a number of those would have to be financed by the town. If you're talking about, dredging the harbor to increase flushing or, various kinds of things. So, yes.
Or like wastewater treatment plants.
Or wastewater
things like
treatment, or
that.
the sewer. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be an important part of it. The one thing that we are in, potentially a good position to do, is that actually the water quality of the river, based on, the testing, that the watershed does every year, is that we're in much better shape than we were, a few years ago. And the West Branch is actually in compliance, and the East Branch is fairly close to compliance. But again, DEP is not necessarily thinking along those terms because they are looking at the models that said, this is the Mass Estuaries Report, and in the TMDL, you need to reduce X amount of tons of nitrogen. And because they view that as the mechanism to get to these water quality standards. And so I've tried to have this discussion with them, but it hasn't been that fruitful, just because, just as an aside, given the magnitude of what they have proposed, they really have not had a robust public hearing process. I mean, but we don't know. We don't really know, because we've never done one of these, and they've never really explained to them how this permit process works.
Brian?
You may not have an answer for this, and I realize that, but.
Never stopped me before.
Wait, sorry. Do you have any idea why the river is improving?
Well, there's a series of, there is a series of things. I think agricultural practices and the use of fertilizer has improved, as well as agricultural husbandry has both been kind of reduced. are not, you know, we're aggressive or progressive in land conservation in ways that protects, is often around tributaries to the water. The work that the Board of Health has done, you know, on promoting, you know, nitrogen reduction. I think that there are also external factors, because there's a definite relationship between the amount of nitrogen compounds in the air and how those end up in the water. And because of the reduction in fossil fuels, not only, but just in coal-burning power plants, is also a contributor. So, and this is one of the challenges because of the time delay between taking, like for septic systems, or any of the, because this all has to do with contaminants traveling through the groundwater. And that takes time, and the Westport soils are tight, so it tends to take, you know, it could take 5 to 10 years. So, but if you look at the chart, we were really up here maybe 8, 10 years ago, and now we're down here. So it's really dropped substantially, and we want to maintain that. And I think the sewer project will do a lot to help that, because that is that sub-watershed up by Bread and Cheese Brook, kind of up there, is particularly, as a sub-watershed, you know, it's significantly above what the models say.
It's the
they need to
main
reach.
source of what our nitrates are coming from.
Right,
It's coming from Route 6. And that's what the Estuaries Project showed, and our recent study showed. It's all pointing towards that.
Right. And other communities.
My point I
also
was trying to
contribute.
get to was also, we've been actively encouraging aquaculture and reseeding of our beds and our scallop beds, and are much more healthier now, and producing more and more product now sustainably. And I think that I don't think people understand how much that has to do with how clean the water is getting, because those mollusks are the filters, they're biological filters that actually do help to reduce nitrates. And how do you say, they collect them, they take them out of the system. You know?
So your plan now, so we've got a bunch of comments, it's about to go back up to the DEP.
Right.
Did anybody else have any comments or questions for Phil while he's here? Like, to be clear, we want clean water. Everybody wants clean water. But we're working about how to make it not such a huge burden on the taxpayer and not such a burden on the residents. You know, how do you phase it in so that it's not?
It'd be nice if they started it where the songs are about it, because it's that bad. Love dirty water, so they're not even addressing it where it's dirty. So picking on us.
I find that was one of the reasons I asked that question about that, because the North Shore doesn't seem to get any of these regulations for 10, 15 years after we do. And they have 10 times the density,
and stuff up there.
10 times the density and development as we have down here. And it seems like they just, you know, we're the forgotten stepchild. You know, down here.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if it was because the sequencing of how the Mass Estuaries reports that led to the TMDLs, I don't know how those got farmed out, like how they got picked, but so that's the situation. And I just should say in passing, there is, that there are at least one community, and probably others, that are making, you might say, the pitch to their political representatives that DEP should delay this, what I think is probably be the early, 2023 issuance of these regulations, that there should be a much more extended public comment period. So I don't know if that will happen or not.
I think we've definitely been in communication with Senator Rodriguez and Representative Schmidt. I think they've been on all these drafts of everything. So.
When they first rolled out, here's what kills me. When they first rolled out Title V, they gave the individual the option to keep the system they had until they aged out of their house. And a transferred title to the next generation or the next owner or whatever it is. And at that time, then you would have to upgrade. And so that would be included in part of the selling price, so it wouldn't be an overly huge burden on
Right.
anyone at this time. And I just don't understand why
Yeah.
they can't do that now.
I don't understand how you
Because
get it to
that
work.
that just kills me that you know, people who just spent, 2 years ago, spent $40,000 on a new system, okay, that wasn't a D-Night system, and now in 5 years, they're gonna have to spend another 40,000? You know, for a lot of people, especially those of us who live in the north end, that's an impossible task.
Yeah.
That means I
yeah.
have to sell the house and move somewhere else.
Right.
That's really, for a lot of people in the north end, that's what that would mean.
Yeah,
Well, supposedly, we're not gonna be that effective, because we already got the rule from the Board of Health, and we're working towards, so.
I get that.
We told
I get
Well,
that,
only,
but
but
to-
that's why we have to do this municipal
But
permit.
this is in a way, and excuse the vernacular, but in my opinion, this is legalized extortion. It says, it's gonna be this onerous if you don't do this. We can't force you to do either.
right.
I can tell you, if you do this, this is what it's gonna be. It's terrible. It's legalized extortion, and it's wrong, and I'm sorry, that's my opinion.
And thank you for being the messenger.
And I understand your position, Phil, and you
Yes, right.
understand the sensibility of it, and
Yeah,
allowing
yeah,
for
but
people
as-
to
yeah,
age out of their home
Yeah.
without
that-
losing
But
it.
I'm definitely advocating for the Board of Health and the town in this situation,
Yeah.
and, you know, and I agree. I mean, I think it's great that we've made progress. I think we should have a coordinated strategy, which I think we've been doing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, you know, if, at the point where we, sitting down with DEP, and we're able to demonstrate this is the progress that we've made, and this is how we're going to continue to maintain that progress, that they will say, okay, we'll move on to other communities that need our intervention more than you do.
Well, I don't have a problem with this happening, but
Yeah.
the state needs to pony up some money
Yeah.
and say, here, we want you to meet this standard, here's the money, go do it.
Right.
I have no problem doing that whatsoever, but
Yeah.
now, hey, you need to meet this standard, and oh, by the way, we're not gonna give you any money to do that.
Yeah.
We're just gonna make you do
And
that.
then we're gonna change it mid.
That's legalized extortion.
So thank you for being, so this is
Okay.
just public information you're trying to spread out here, right? So
Yes,
that-
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so we
And
don't
just
need
to
to
make,
take
you
any
know, people
specific.
aware, but again,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, it's not gonna happen tomorrow. So I think we're gonna have time to plan and react. But this is just what we want to be able to put in front of DEP, is to give them a
Right.
chance to rethink what they're doing.
Just briefly, Phil, is the Title V loophole still there? If you sell to a family member, or if you buy
Yes.
cash, you don't have to upgrade?
Well,
I don't know why they don't address that first.
yeah, I mean, it's, you know, so the rule is, if you sell, you have to get an inspection. And, yeah, but I
That's for
think,
the mortgage company.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then
If you pay
it's
cash,
really
you don't have
it's really the mortgage company that, you know, because.
enforces it.
Because you could have a cesspool and still pass inspection. the
Well, that's
way
what I'm saying,
Title
the
V is written.
loophole is if you pay cash,
Yeah,
or if it goes to a
right,
family
right,
member.
right.
That's what I just
Yeah,
wanted to know if it's
and,
still
you know,
effective.
I mean, we on the board kind of talked about it, but it gets, very complicated, if the wife is inheriting, the house from, the widow's inheriting the house, and then you're coming along and saying, oh, yeah, well, by the way, now you have to,
No,
so that
again,
gets,
that should
that gets
never
the more,
happen.
that's where it gets kind of complicated, and there's like 3 pages of regulations on just doing that part, and we just thought, we're not gonna,
All right.
So,
Try and fine
so
tune
Phil,
it.
were you also here for the item about the transfer station employee?
I was not
You're
here
not,
about it,
okay,
I
okay.
think Tanya's here.
No, we had
Matt's
somebody
not
else for
here.
that, okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna.
No, I'm gonna leave Tanya to talk about
Okay,
that.
all right, so,
Take a breather.
so what we're trying to do now, you can go.
Thank you.
but,
He just takes the
just for like,
controversial stuff.
for logistics.
Yeah.
So the town administrator has got a call from Tony Roselli, I think, is who he's on the phone with. So we're checking to see if that discussion is gonna happen. If that discussion is not gonna happen, I was gonna let Sue go, unless, you'd love to stay for.
Did he forget us?
I just called him, he called me back, but there's no message.
Probably at
No,
dinner.
he
There's
didn't
no
get-
answer, so he may
Probably at a nice
be
restaurant.
All right.
in another meeting.
So, do we let Sue go? Do we
Yeah,
wait
it's
and
half
see
an
if
hour
we
late,
hear
he
from?
probably forgot. Yeah, because Tony's usually pretty punctual.
All right. No, here he is. Oh,
There he is.
It's like Beetlejuice. You had to talk about him for a certain amount of time. Poor Tanya has to stay now, though.
Yeah.
Sue, do you want to go ahead and come forward? Because I know you're super interested in this.
Not really.
So, Tony, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I don't see myself on the screen. Am I on the screen?
Yeah.
You are. You are.
I am, okay. Oh, there it is.
Says unknown, Tony, don't be offended.
Yeah.
So this is Tony Roselli. He is performs our yearly audit. Dick, can you want to introduce
Yeah,
what's
just
going
a
on here?
couple of thoughts here. I think we all know Tony. He's been with us for many years, does a great job for us. We appreciate him being here tonight. The audit committee was playing a role in this, and we had Tony present to us in a real fashion, and went over the highlights of the annual audit. This is for 2021. And as usual, the select board wishes to have Tony brief us on findings, more as an overview. Tony's agreed to do that, and that's my introduction. Tony, glad to have you here.
So Tony, I was just going to pop up the summary on the management letter. Is that good, or do you have something to present to us?
Yeah, no, I think if you pull up the management letter, we can kind of go through it and ask questions as we go. And I apologize, first of all. I can't blame the traffic tonight because I wasn't driving there, but I got jammed up in another meeting. So happy that you guys still have me able to present tonight.
Well, thank you for joining.
So basically, this just to preface, this is the fiscal 21 town audit. So it's now, it's about 18 months old. We'll probably be starting the 22 audit in probably sometime in January. Still kind of waiting for Nicole to wrap up with the Department of Revenue and Schedule A's and balance sheets, free cash, all the stuff that you guys do with the Department of Revenue. So we'll probably start that up, like I said, in about January. And maybe with 22, we can do the exit conference more timely, just so that the information isn't as stale. But just to kind of summarize, the town did fairly well, despite being shut down and going through the whole COVID thing and everything else. Unassigned fund balance went up to $3.3 million, and that's basically is your stabilization funds plus like your free cash. If you add those together, that gets you to your what's called your unassigned fund balance in layperson's terms. Your OPEB increased to over $3.7 million. Again, really nice job there. Even though it was a challenging, actually the investments were good. In 22, there's a challenging investment environment. So that may take a dip in 22, but hopefully it's like a short-term thing. But the OPEB is doing really well at $3.7 million. And like I said, your investments in 21 were very good. They returned 24%. The pension fund over at Bristol County went from 61 to 65%. So where that was way underfunded, that's at about the state average now. So that's really good also. General stabilization funds, which are part of the 3.3 million, increased to over 1.3 million. And lastly, on the financial highlights, the town got about 4.8 million in ARPA allotment. Some of that's direct, some of that's through the county, and you're obligated to encumber that by the end of 24 and spend it by 26. So basically, very good on the financial side. Your bond rating is still strong at a AA3. That's going to hopefully have some financial savings in the future. And you've also had some key financial positions turn over. Town administrator, town accountant, treasurer. So there's been a lot of turnover. So the town's gone through some transition. But it seems like you've had a nice soft landing and everyone seems to be working very well together. So any questions on that first slide?
Oh, great.
Okay, so next, Next page, I just wanted to throw out here that, you know, for the last few years before 20 and 21, you had these material weaknesses and significant deficiencies. Well, I just wanted to highlight that even though we had some findings, they didn't rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness. So I wanted to point that out. I thought that was a really good accomplishment for the town to get past those issues. So hopefully as the team works together more, that those types of findings are, you know, a thing of the past, and the town will just continue to fight to improve the management letter comments and the financials of the town. Next, network security. This is just a reminder, just to stay vigilant. We always like to put it in here because if something happens, you know, that headline, that newspaper that you got hacked, that your money ended up in Argentina somewhere because of some password phishing thing. So keep your people trained. Make sure that they're not falling for these phishing scams, and just make sure that you're on top of your network security. Next is just fraud risk mitigation. I know there's been a lot of, you know, just transitioning through the regular accounting the last couple of years. But once that settles down, treasurer and accountant should get back to doing, you know, assessments of departments, how they're handling cash, what risks there are, and put controls in place that do protect those risks. So that's just, again, an annual fraud announcement. GASB is that's just a GASB thing. We don't have to waste any time on that. I've discussed that one with Nicole. Long-term obligations we talked about. That's the OPEB and the pension, so we can skip through that. The ARPA we've talked about. We can kind of skip through that. And let's stop here for a second. Investment income. So the Federal Monetary Oversight Committee has been very aggressive with increasing interest rates, as you're probably aware. Just on the news every other day, it seems like Jerome Powell or someone from the Fed is doing something that's causing the interest rates to increase on the borrowing side. Well, what's happening is you're seeing the same sort of increase on the investment side. So what I'm telling communities, the 12-month Treasury note hit 4.73 last week, 4.73%. So what I'm telling communities to do is do cash flow forecasting and see what sort of excess money you have, because anything under 12 months is free game legally in Massachusetts. So you can actually invest in these Treasury notes. They're safer than insurance, federally backed insurance savings accounts. They're backed by the federal government, and you can earn upwards of over 4% on these notes. So if you had $1 million, that would be $40,000. So it's pretty good while you're chasing nickels to try to balance your tax recaps and your tax rate. To actually have this new vehicle that could be a revenue producing asset for you. So I just wanted to make sure that the treasurer was working with the financial advisors to make sure you're maximizing your investment income.
Working on it, yes, thank you.
Super, super. And then in the treasurer collector's office, which was, again, that was kind of a soreness for the town for the last several years. A lot of that has been cleaned up. It's been fixed. Couple of low-hanging fruits. There was a GASB 31 mark to market that the Department of Revenue likes to see. That wasn't done for fiscal 21, so going forward that should be done. And again, that's just a journal entry. It doesn't impact your free cash or any of that sort of stuff. The Affordable Housing Trust cash balance and what the Affordable Housing Trust has in cash do not balance the bank statements. So those needed to be trued up. So what happens is everything kind of filters through the town's depository and expense accounts, but then there needs to be a true up back to the Affordable Housing Trust. And again, it doesn't affect free cash or anything. It's just moving the cash around the bank statements. There were banks the collector's banks are not recorded on the ledgers of the accountant. And there was over 70K in receipts related to 2021. So again, that needs to be turned over before the end of the year, or just include that particular bank statement with the treasurer's cash in the future. Usually we like to see that account go down to zero and all the turnovers are made.
Sue's like nodding her head, like, yep, she's done it.
It's
I
done.
understand it's not up again. As of 21, they haven't been looked at since 2011, but I do understand that those are getting some activity again. So that's another way to bring money into the town hall, is to chase some of the delinquents around. And tailings was unchanged for 2 years, which tells me that that had not been done either. But I believe at the exit conference with the audit committee, the treasurer told me that that was something that they were working on.
It's done.
So,
It's done.
so these are minor in relation to, if you look at the treasurer collector's comments, say 3 or 4 years ago. So we've come a long way with this department, headed in the right direction. So let's keep that going. The general ledger closed, with Terry leaving in, I believe, September of 21, which was shortly after year end, and Nicole coming in at first as an interim. There was a lot to sort through. And Nicole was working with Terry's records, and so in terms of the close, it wasn't the most efficient process. There was some entries that needed to be made. There was some timeliness things, but Nicole got through it. The town got through it. We did the audit. We found that most things were in the proper places. So hopefully that gets more efficient as Nicole and the treasurer get used to the new their new roles. Firearm permits. The town had, let's see, 20, it looks like it's overstated. The town had about $26,000 in that account in 2021, and almost $30,000 in 20, the year before. But the bill during the year was only like $5,000 or $6,000. So it seems like there's more in that account than needs to be. So we had just put that out as an item to go research. There could be a coding error or some sort of accounting error that led to that. Indirect costs, so the town votes for indirect costs for Harbor Beach and Water Enterprise, but the amount actually transferred did not agree to those votes. So we just want to make sure that gets done in the future as well. It's a minor thing, not a lot of money, but we just want to make sure that that gets fine-tuned. Next is water invoices. I understand this is getting worked on. The town got billed from Fall River for a lot of things that the town believes was more cleaning than actual water usage. So it drove up a pretty large bill. It was over a number of years. I believe that is being settled with Fall River. I think the town, your town administrator is working on that. Police details, again, something that had been getting done in prior years that was falling off a little bit was just reconciling to the records that the police maintain. So at the end of the year, that should be done. There was a big deficit of over $92,000, so you want to make sure that the police can cover that with their receivables that are outstanding. And then next is your health insurance withholding. That's been around for a long time. It's getting steadily better. I'm hoping that it gets down to an amount that's not material as the town works on that.
I think Nicole has.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just going through your special revenue accounts and capital project accounts that have basically gone stagnant. They haven't been used, but this fund balance is there. So basically, find a way to use it. Some of your capital projects you can repurpose. Some of your special revenue accounts, work with your department heads to see if that money can get spent. There's a total of about $50,000 to $145,000. And some of that debt, capital debt, you can actually use to pay down up to $50,000 per year in debt if you want to appropriate that. So I think that is all of the comments. I don't know if anyone has any questions or.
So I just want to turn over to Dick. So Dick, you're on the committee. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that's a good accounting of this, and Nicole was present in all those meetings, as was Sue, and covered all these items in greater depth. So that's pretty much it. We also looked at the financials overall, but spent most of our time with the management report. So it's a good report, and all the bases have been covered. Either something is over and done with, put to bed, or it's in progress and getting there soon.
Great. And Sue, you're here. So do you have anything you wanted to add or comment on it?
No, just that Nicole and I are working closely on a lot of these things and other things that we've found along the way that need to be taken care of, and we're just trying to make sure the books are proper and correct.
Yeah, I love reading this report. It looks like we have a good, I mean, even here, you guys were just starting to gel, but I think it's really been so positive to see we're not getting any material weaknesses, and Tony isn't yelling at us.
Yeah.
So that's good.
That's a good
So
thing.
that's the good work that you and Nicole are doing in your department. So thank you.
Yeah, it's great. In the past, I would just need to put a cardboard cutout of myself and play a tape of the prior year. And no need to do that now. It looks like you're moving the ship in the right direction, and it's really good to see. And I'm proud of all you guys, because there was a lot to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully when we settle down to do the 2022 audit, we see even more improvements. So good job.
Did anybody else have any questions for Tony?
Just, I want to commend Sue for the job she and also Nicole have been doing, and
Agreed.
all the people that are working with them, because it was a sewer that you had to walk into in the beginning, and there was a complete mess, and you guys have done an amazing job for us, and I just want to say I appreciate it.
Like I say, it's teamwork. We're working together to get it done, so thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, anything from you? No?
Nope.
All right,
Moving
Tony,
along.
thank you. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and hopefully I see most of you at the MMA next month. Stop by the booth if you have time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Now we're going to skip to Tanya's item. Thank you, Sue. Sue, anything while you're here?
No, but I think we're good.
Okay. So we're going to skip to Tanya's item. So this is, you can come forward. Do you not want to come forward? You can, okay. All right, so it's the Board of Health. So we'll let Jim cover it, and you can talk about it. So this is F. So this is a request from Matt Armendo, the Board of Health Director, to post the transfer station and recycling center worker position both in-house and to the public simultaneously. So Jim, you want to tell us about this one?
Yeah, they just hired a new employee probably about a month ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago, and unfortunately, he gave his notice, so we're looking to fill that position as soon as we can, hoping to post it both in-house and with the public simultaneously, in case we don't have any in-house applicants. We can get this moving. It's a critical position down at the transfer station. The sooner we can get it filled, the better.
Is this the one we were gonna help with the,
Yes.
all right,
I'll move with Sue.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll post for that position. So now we're on the town administrator goals. We're back.
He did a good job on the sheet, sums it up.
Oh, I should find the goals, actually. So Dick is going to take us through this.
Okay, so as we all know, the contract with our town administrator has a requirement in there for goals, performance goals, with which we would assess performance in a given year. And I think the wording is such that it says salary would be increased if we have a successful report, successful review, I guess. So we were somewhat behind the 8 ball a little bit here, but we're caught up now. And Jim and I worked on this. He did most of the work. We looked at some of Tim King's goals. Some of them repeat, but most of these are new because things are different. So we jointly worked on this list. Jim had actually a longer list than I did, but that's okay. And you can see it's neatly broken down into the first area being the importance of providing us with recommendations, background information, research on various town matters. That's critical, hard to measure, but critical. And then the second part is fiscal management, and a number of items there, I won't go through them, but they're pretty clear to us. And then the number of projects, and boy, we have a lot of projects that goes over to the next page. So this, in my opinion, I would recommend that we adopt these. Jim and I have agreed that these make sense. And this is basically the job description right in front of us. So we should have that, and then later on, assess the performance against those goals, and that would be the basis for salary recommendation.
Moving it? Are you moving it?
I'm not sure what the protocol is. Do we need to move this? This is a normal administrative chore that we do.
Yeah, I don't
but-
think we need to vote on it,
All right.
but does anybody have any comments or?
No, I think it's a good list, and plus he gets stuff thrown at him, so.
He's
He's
thrown at him all the
busy, I
time.
mean, on all the committees, he's staying late for meetings, so I wouldn't wanna throw any more
Catches,
at him.
catches with
He's
both
gotta,
hands.
gotta figure out the town clerk's office now. That was a surprise.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
And then if there's a shift within, he's gotta figure that out.
Dick, thank you for working on this. Jim, I think
My
they look
pleasure.
really good, so thank you for working on that. Okay, anything else on the goals? I think we're done with that. So that brings us to H, 5H, a request from the town hall employees to hold a Christmas potluck
Excuse
lunch.
me 1 minute. Tanya, can you do me a favor, just if you think of it, let me know if you get a lot of bites down the transfer station. I got the trailer to pick them up for bike committee. I was sick last week, I didn't get a chance. So if there's a bunch, I'll go pick them up.
The last time I was there a week ago, there was still a bunch.
Okay,
We should
I'm gonna
get
go.
them before the winter.
All right, I'm gonna grab them. So if you think of it, if you notice it, just drop me an email, please.
Okay.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we have a request for the town hall employees to host a Christmas potluck luncheon on Wednesday, December 21st, and they would like to close the town offices for an hour in order to participate in the luncheon.
Move to approve.
Wait a minute, what's the times on that? Is it 12 to 1?
I was never given
I-
times. I'm assuming it's 12 to 1.
If it's all right with the board, I absolutely, we stretch it from 12 to 2. I mean, I'd love to give them a half, but then we'd have to do it for every other department. 12 to 2, because some of them still have people at their windows, they get there late, it's a setup and breakdown. I think 12 to 2 is better, as long as they got it posted on their door.
Yeah,
I
I'll
think
move
we should
that.
give them a break, it's been a tough year or two. I'll second it.
All right, any discussion?
No, I just wish we could do it for every department, obviously, like police and fire and stuff.
So I have been asked you may have noticed the doors have been decorated, some of them. So the employees are also having a door decorating contest. So I encourage the public to encourage the decorations of the doors. The selectmen's door is looking pretty good
Yeah,
over there.
flashing
You
lights
know,
over
it's
there.
It's got
Wow.
lights, it's got gingerbread. I haven't seen the other doors, but if you come to town hall, if you have business here, we've got not 12 to 2 on the 21st, but outside of that, come by and check it out.
And what is the prize for the winning door?
Yeah, is there a
A
prize?
new door or something?
You just get to be the winner?
Yeah, let's get a trophy.
I'll pick something up.
Yeah, there you
It'll
go.
be some fun prize.
Yeah.
All right, so we have all in favor of the potluck lunch?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. And so that brings us to J. This is not nearly as fun as a potluck luncheon. So we have a request to approve the settlement agreement, the Diane F. Crampton v. Town of Westport, the Adamsville landing case. We had an agreement that was approved through mediation, but then this is the formal document. And Jim has kindly put the motion in here.
Should I move it?
You can.
I motion to approve this settlement agreement and to authorize the town administrator to execute and deliver any and all documents necessary in order to settle the case.
Second. It's not a roll call.
Do you want to tell us what's going on here?
Sure, this was a boundary line dispute between the town landing at Adamsville and one of the abutters. The abutter was using some of the property, and there were a couple of different surveys that showed different information. We went back and forth. We actually had a mediation. Mr. Brewer was involved as well. And, nobody wins 100% in these things, but I think overall it was a reasonable settlement. They'll be paying the town $75,000, and we agreed to the property line adjustment, or whether or not it was an adjustment or actually where the property line should be is up for debate, but their occupation will pretty much be the new boundary line. And it's also been reviewed by the Town Landing Commission. They were involved in the process as well, and they are in favor of the settlement.
And are you recommending approval?
Recommend approval.
And Dick, you participated in the mediation.
I did, and I recommend it. Also, I'd like to recognize Jeff Bull of the Landing Commission. He was very helpful, very thoughtful, and gave us a lot of the background information, the technical nature, and so on and so forth. So he should be recognized for that. But I definitely recommend this. It's a good settlement for the town and for the property owner. It's fair, it's equitable.
And, you know, we had numerous meetings about this, and one of the things that we pointed out was the property there was never going to be used by the town. It's a steep bank, it's a slope, it's nothing we would have utilized. Best case scenario, this is a good settlement.
Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We already did the town administrator reports. So minutes of November 14.
I will move the minutes of November 14th.
Sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a report on the bill warrant.
It goes to Dick today
Wow.
because he did it for me.
I had the good fortune of being here the day that the signing was to be done, and we had the capital improvement planning committee meeting, and we had a little dead time, so I called in and said I can take care of that. It was good to, keep in the groove, and it was a pretty big pile, and took a little time to go through it. Everything was in order, everything looked good. I had a couple of questions, but it was answered by either Jim or by Nicole. So I signed it, it's all in good order, and there's a sheet in there, I think, to show
Thank
that
you.
was signed.
So we have the liaison committee reports and suggestions for future agendas. Do you want to start, Dick?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add here. I had a couple of things that I wrote down, but I think they were covered. So I can take a pass.
All right, Steve?
Bike committee met, like I said, they're doing pretty good at the transfer station. We're getting a lot of good bikes. So pretty happy about that. I gotta go down and pick up a load. I was sick last week. Moving forward with the plans to try to connect the bike route over. We had another meeting with Jackie Jones and Serpent about the Route 6 corridor. So that came up again, that we could try to do everything together between infrastructure and bikes. Jim, you were on that one, right? And Dick, you were on it. We're still trying to get the bikes across safely. Hopefully there'd be money between the infrastructure we're trying to do and connecting up the South Coast Bikeway, that we can get some good things done over there and make it a lot safer. That's the majority of what was going on over the last 2 weeks, in between being sick.
Thank you. Brian?
Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the CIPC meeting because I was still in my quarantine period because I had an exposure over the holiday weekend. I'll be coordinating with Jim for the next long-term building committee meeting. That's it.
All right. Ann?
Affordable housing, we had a meeting, just moving forward on hiring Leonardi as a consultant as the executive director person.
So for the internet committee, we were supposed to meet this week, but there was a scheduling mix-up. So we're going to meet on the 15th to kind of talk about the last from the select board meeting. There was a climate resilience meeting. That committee continues to do a lot of things. There's amazing people on that committee, but there's just a lot to report on there. And then I haven't been attending the school building construction meetings lately. They fell off my calendar somehow. So I think everything is still trying to dot the i's and cross the t's on the final.
They did start some of the flooring over the Thanksgiving break.
They started the flooring. Hallelujah. All right.
It is moving.
Good, okay. I did also, Jim and I met with Karen Rouse to have a kind of initial conversation about the approach to the budget process. So on the 19th, Jim's gonna present his proposed budget. He's done He's done a lot of maneuvering and assumptions to make that work, so he's gonna present that on the 19th, but we had a kind of a chat with Karen about going forward in the budget process, just to make sure Finance Committee is aligned, but, yeah, so we'll see. I think that's everything that I had. We don't have anyone from the public, but is there any other comments or statements anyone wants to pass along before we move?
Just be careful at deer, and we had another bad crash on 195 today, so.
Oh,
Careful
today?
out there. Yeah, it was on the news tonight. Somebody smashed, on 195, no.
I have come so close to hitting 5 or 6 over the last 5 months.
I think we're like number 2 in the state.
Unbelievable.
We were up there, we were like 60 crashes already.
Coming down my street on a regular basis now, I have to slam my brakes on.
Well, I know there was a
At 30
particular,
miles an hour, mind you, I'm slamming my brakes on. It's like,
I know there
whoa.
was a particularly bad one on 195 that our responders responded to not
Yep.
that long ago.
Keep them busy like you.
Yeah. Just a reminder that we have tons of ways for you to volunteer to help your community. So there's boards, committees, commissions. Even if it doesn't look like there's a
Yeah.
vacancy, come talk to somebody because we can probably move things around. So anybody who's interested in participating in your local government, we really need you.
Can we do that in school? Can she do that anymore? You used to scroll through once in a while. Can I, through you, Val, can you do any kind of scroll to help us out with that, like they used to do? Once in a while in between programs?
I haven't been given an updated list.
Okay, but you can do it with a list?
Yeah.
Okay.
And do we didn't have anything else before 48, or within the 48-hour rule, I don't think. So we are going to go to executive session. We will come out of executive session only to adjourn. There will be no further business. We're gonna go to executive session. We're gonna do a little brief 2-minute blurb for the cable committee, and then we'll start executive session. So if anybody wants to do that.
Oh, you're really good at that.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A. The chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect. To A, discuss strategy with respect to litigation for the East Beach Improvement Association v. Town of Westport et al. Discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining at the Westport Police Association, and to approve the minutes of September 12, 2022.
So move, Steve Willett.
Second, Brian Valcourt.
All in favor?
Richard Burr, aye?
Aye, Steve Willett.
Aye, Shawna Schufelt.
I'm Brian Valcourt.
I am Boxler.
Okay, so we are in executive session.